Hi, I make models for VRChat, and this is probably one of the less common questions I've received over my time, but this is personally something I struggled with especially bad when I first started out. The thought of creating a 3D head with like all the moving little heebie-jeebies was daunting to me, so as a result, I did faces using 2D textures. But the thing with that is I had no idea how to go about making it move and talk. So as a result, I want to document and try my best to explain how you can go about doing 2D VRChat lip sync and whatnot. I'll be going over two different ways you can go about doing this, though I think the second one is probably more optimal, at least internally and for other aspects. It just depends on what you're going for the most part. So I'll go over both. The first way you can go about this is by using material swaps. I'm going to use this commission I made quite a while ago as an example because this one has a bandana that can deform, and the way I typically do 2D Visemes wouldn't exactly work very well with this. So I just ended up using material swaps just to make my life a little easier. Really, all you have to do in Blender before you move to Unity is create several copies of your pre-existing texture and change the mouth out and create a new one that'll lip sync or change depending on what syllable is being said. This applies for both, but it doesn't necessarily matter what different variations you use. As long as there's an open and a closed, it should just work fine regardless. But you can do as many as you'd like, or you could just limit it to 2. The second way should run a lot better on multiple platforms, but it may require a bit more work. I'll be using Shelly as an example for the most part here, since she's the first model I've done this way with. This way uses shape keys to manipulate the mouth rather than using material swaps, which can affect how well an avatar can run. This is slightly more complex, but shouldn't be that difficult to set up in Blender. If I take Shelly's head and select everything except for the mouth, and I move it all upward, there are planes that are inside of her face that I use shape keys to control the position of. This way works relatively similar to an actual 3D head using shape keys, but it only uses separate planes so the mouth can still appear stylized and 2D. All you really need to do is create and texture separate mouth planes using geometry, and then create shape keys that can move these faces in and out of the head, or shrink and enlarge in them. It really just depends on what you're going for. This can be done with 2D looking planes as well, if you want to draw the mouths on your own on a texture plane, rather than modeling them using geometry. Suspecting that you have everything completed and your avatar is set down as a humanoid, I'll be moving on to Unity. Both ways can be built relatively similar, but they have a few key differences. I'll be going over material swaps first for ease sake. Before you start anything, you will need extra materials that you can swap to and from. This should be easy if you already have your material set down. If not, create them. You can take your pre-existing materials, or just new ones you've made, and you can Control-C and you can Control-V, just make sure you have more materials. And under your texture, just depending on what you're using, it may appear differently, but this is using Toon Standard. Take your new images and drag them up into the main texture window. Make sure you change all of these if you have more options. And that should be all you have to do for material swaps. Both of these steps apply to either or, but I'll be going over an easier, quicker way to do it first. This requires VRCFury, so if you don't have it already, I'll leave it in the description so you can download it. Click on your avatar in the hierarchy, and go down to the bottom right of the screen, and click Add Component. Here you can search Viseme, and you can add this new component to your avatar. Here you'll be able to add actions to each syllable where you can add custom actions. If using material swaps, you want to add the material swap action. Now for each of the 14, you just want to select the renderer that contains your mouth image. And then after that, you drag the corresponding material into the material section. Repeat this for all 14, and apply different images for each corresponding syllable if you've done so. And after you've got all of that set up, your component should look like this, if not a little different. Although this step that I'm about to say is important, make sure to enable instant mode, as this will make your Viseme snap instead of blend from one place to another. And if using blend shapes, you want to add the blend shape action to all 14. And here you should be able to search any blend shapes that you've created. Make sure to assign the correct blend shapes. And after making sure to apply instant mode, as this is very important, your component should look like this, at least in some shape or form. Now if playtesting this should work properly, ignore the fact that the viewpoint is far above the head. This is a test build and I am too lazy, frankly, to move the viewpoint lower. But you can see that this works. And I'll switch to the other one as well. This also should work, and it should hopefully give you the desired effect that you want. If everything works as intended, you're free to stop here. But if for whatever reason you want to set this up using parameters instead, I will go into that as well. For this, you're going to have to create, I think around, I will count, you will have to create 14 separate animations. I will go into how to do that with each one, and then I will explain how to set that up, as setting that up should be identical for both, but setting up animations themselves will be different. For blend shapes, you want to right-click and create a new animation. Set the name to whatever you want, but I'd preferably keep it numbered so it's easier to keep track of the order. Take your animation, drag it onto your character, then double-click the animation itself. After that, click on your character, and hit record. If you want, you can temporarily change your lip-sync mode to Viseme blend shape so it's easier to keep track of which one you're adjusting. In this case, I want to make my first animation puh. So I will be clicking on the main mesh, opening up blend shapes, and dragging up my slider associated with the puh sound. After that, create more animations until there are 14 corresponding to each Viseme. I'll quickly show how to do the same thing, except with material swaps. Repeat the same process, create a new animation, animate whatever you'd like, drag it onto your avatar, double-click your avatar, then double-click your animation. Hit record, click on your mesh, and corresponding to whichever syllable you'd like to use, open up the Materials tab, and drag and drop your new material, and you should be good. And just repeat that 14 more times. I'll set this up specifically on Shelly for ease's sake, but it should be set up the exact same way. When you dragged and dropped your animation onto your avatar, it should have made a new animator controller. Either that, or you already had a pre-existing animation controller. Double-click and open this up. Over here, you want to create a new base layer. You can call this whatever you'd like. I'll just call it Viseme. Delete this base layer if there's anything unimportant there. Create a new parameter, make sure that it's an integer. And also make sure that it's called Viseme exactly this way, including the capitals. Create a new stage. You can name this whatever you'd like. I'm going to name it silent. Take your any state and make a transition into silent. Then select all of your animations and drag and drop them into this layer. It doesn't matter where they are, you just put them wherever you want. Then on your any state, you want to make a transition to each of these, all 14. Now this is where things might start getting a little bit more complicated. Click on your any state, then silent, or whatever you've made your first transition, and add a new condition. Viseme, make sure this is Viseme, equals 0. Now 0 up to 14 is equal to a specific syllable. 0 in this case is silent and it keeps going down. So 1 would be p, 2 would be f, and 3 would be th, etc. It should relatively be the same order that you see them here if you were to select Viseme blend shape. So that's why I personally think it's important to at least keep count of the order of your Visemes, just so it's easier to keep track of it. And on your any state, you're going to have to do this for every single one. You click on 1, you make a new condition, equals, this one will be equal to 1 because this is p, and we will carry on and do this for all 14. Now, you should be good after that, but if you'd like them all to snap without having to edit each one by one, you can click on your inspector and change it into debug mode. Then after that, you can hold down Shift and select each transition. And after you've done that, you can change your transition duration and make sure that it has no exit time. That way it will quickly snap from one to another without any sort of blending. This is also important. Make sure that your lip sync is set to Viseme parameter only. Enable playable layers and drag your animation controller into FX. Now after this, if you were to playtest, it should work as you intend it to work, and you should get similar results if done correctly with material swaps. Thank you for watching. I'm not sure how much of this could actually help someone. A good amount of this was unscripted, and I had to cut out a lot of pure silence. I think I'm gonna have to cut out a good amount of silence on this as well. But either way, if I somehow manage to leave something out, or if you're confused or anything, I'll try my best to keep up with the comments and I'll try and reply. Thank you again.